This is a Fonzie Studio podcast. Welcome to Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and every week I'll share with you a tale and ancient wisdom of the native tribes of North America. I'll be joined by my cats, Dawa and Fonzie, who will undoubtedly make their presence known at some point, so I might as well just list them as co-hosts. We hope you'll enjoy the tales and wisdom, raise your vibration, and enrich your life with us every week. Greetings, friends. I'm Jay Idle. Welcome back to the fourth installment of Tales from the First Nations. As a kid, I grew up in central Ohio. We lived out in the country, and on summer nights, I used to love to go outside and look up at the sky. I loved seeing all the stars and the moon shining back at me. I used to wonder what was up there looking back up at me. My mother used to tell my brothers and I that the moon was made of green cheese, and that there was a man up there who would eat the moon, and that was why the moon would get smaller and smaller after a full moon. I guess we never inquired about how it got bigger again after it was small. Maybe he packed it with new green cheese he bought on Amazon? Or perhaps he had a dairy operation up there with moon cows and cheese-making facilities. I don't really know how that would work. I've never actually met another person who grew up on the moon made of green cheese story, so perhaps my mom was just pinned in a corner and came up with that one on her own. I don't know. However, trying to explain the moon and its phases isn't something new. Many ancient cultures had explanations for the moon phases, the man in the moon, even a rabbit on the moon. In ancient China, they thought that the reason there were so many rabbits was that all the rabbits in the world were female, and a male rabbit lived on the moon. So on every full moon, he would gift the female rabbits with babies. Talk about moonlighting, huh? Well, today's story is called The Girl Who Married the Moon, which comes from an Aleut tribe from the Aleutian Islands in the region of Alaska and Russia. So I hope you'll enjoy the story. Long ago, there were two girl cousins who lived in a large tribal village. When the moon was out, they liked to go to the beach and play. They each claimed that the moon was their husband, and they would spend the whole night gazing up and sending their love to the man in the moon. For shelter, they propped up a large skin boat, and during the night, they changed positions several times so that they could always face their true love in the moon. In the morning, upon returning home, their parents would always question them about where they had been for the whole night, and their answer was always the same. The girls told them how they had watched the moon until it passed from sight. Then they returned home. Many of the family members heard them tell about how much they loved the moon and how they always wished that they too were moons. One evening, they went to the beach with their other young friends, and when they played in the sand, amusing themselves, it became very late, and everyone went home except these two cousins. As the night moved in, the others were back safely tucked in bed, and these two girls remained on the beach, gazing up at the moon. When the moon abruptly went away from their sight, one of the girls complained, "Why does the moon hide so suddenly? I like to play with him and enjoy his moonlight." "I too," said the other. It was not yet midnight, and the moon was already behind the clouds. Up to now, the girls had not noticed how disheveled their appearance was. Well, after they'd been running and playing for a very long time, they were, a little worn out, and they looked it. But suddenly, they became startled when they heard a voice of a young man who was approaching them. "You have professed your love for me," he said. "I have observed you and know you love me. Therefore, I have come for you. But since my work is very hard, I can only take one of you, the more patient one." Each of the girls begged to be chosen. They both professed their love and vowed to be good wives for him. He then said, "I've decided to take both of you. Now close your eyes and keep them closed." So he grabbed each of them gently by the tops of their hair, and suddenly, in the next moment, they were rushing through the air. The patience of one of the girls wore a little thin, and it was getting so long, and she really wanted to see what was happening. So she decided that no one would notice if she were to just open her eyes just a little bit. So she opened her eyes, and she felt herself drop. Down, 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 leaving her hair behind in his hand. Then she found herself alone beside the boat where she'd left it. The other patient cousin kept her eyes closed the entire time, and in the morning she found herself in a comfortable home on the moon. She lived there very happily, loving her new husband and enjoying all of their time together. He generally slept during the day as he worked all night. Frequently, he went away in the morning and returned in the evening, and sometimes he was gone from midday until midnight. His irregular schedule really confused his wife, but he never explained his absence, and she never asked. His silence and indifference piqued the curiosity of the young bride. She tried to fight off her curiosity, but one day she couldn't hold it in anymore, and she confronted him about his work. You go out every day, every evening, every night, and you never tell me what you do. What kinds of people do you associate with while I'm left behind? I'm not with other people, for there are not my kind of people here, he said. I have important work to do, and I cannot be with you all the time. If your work is so hard, she said, can you take me with you to help you sometimes? My work is too hard for you, he replied. I brought you up here because I had no rest when you were down there. You and your lovely cousin were constantly staring at me and teasing me. Now stop your foolishness. You cannot help me. Stay home and be happy for me when I do return. Surely you don't expect me to stay home all the time. She began to cry. If I cannot go with you, can I at least go out by myself sometimes? Of course. Go anywhere you like, except in the 2 huts you see yonder. In the corner of each, there's a curtain under which you must never look. After this warning, he left his home, and that night he looked a little paler than usual. Later, the young bride went out for a walk. Although she went far and in different directions, she saw no people. She tried several short trails, and on each one, she saw a man lying face down. It somehow gave her pleasure to kick them and to disturb them. Each would turn and look at her with one bright, sparkling eye and cry out, "Why do that to me? I'm working and busy." She kicked all of them until she tired of her game, and she turned and ran home. On her way home, she saw the 2 forbidden huts, and she just had to look inside. A curtain hid a corner in the first hut she went into. She couldn't resist the desire to look under the curtain. She walked over very carefully and quietly listened for any sound that might prevent her from reaching for the curtain. Hearing nothing, she carefully took hold of the curtain and pulled it back. There she beheld a half moon, a quarter moon, and a small piece of moon. In the second hut, she found a full moon, one almost full, and another more than half full. Thinking about these beautiful pieces, she decided it would be such fun and no harm to try one on herself just to see how it would feel. The one that was almost full pleased her the most, so she gently picked it up and placed it on one side of her face, and it stuck there. She cried, She tugged and pulled, but the moon would not come off. For fear that her husband would arrive soon home, she hurried home and threw herself into the bed and covered that side of her face. When her husband finally arrived, he found her complaining that the side of her face pained her. He suspected the real cause of the problem and pulled the blanket back to investigate. I tried it on for fun, and now I cannot take it off. Her husband laughed and laughed at her. Then gently, he pulled the moon off for her. At seeing her husband's good humor, she told him of her eventful day, especially the sport she had with the one-eyed people scattered about the sky. "They are stars," he said angrily. "You should not treat them this way." She felt guilt and apologized for her ignorance and cruelty. Since of your own free will you put on this moon, you can wear it from now on and help me in my hard work. I will finish my rounds with the full moon, and after that, you can start in and finish out the month while I rest. To this happy agreement, she consented gladly. Since that time, the two have shared the hard work between them, the man in the moon and his lady in the moon. Even the man in the moon found love and companionship, and it brought him peace and joy that he needed in his life. I wish the same peace and joy for you, and if you can't find it on Earth, you can always look to the stars while eating green cheese. I offer my thanks to you for joining me on this journey and joining me on the podcast. For more great stories and legends, check out the Jaguar Bird channel on YouTube. There's such wonderful stuff on there. I think you're going to love it. And of course, join me next week for another story here on Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and I'll talk to you next time. Today's story comes from The Girl Who Married the Moon, Tales from Native North America, told by Joseph Brujac and Gail Ross. The music for the open and close was provided by my dear friend Scott Brocklesby, and our podcast image was provided by Mark Lawton. We will see you next time. All right, that's it. How'd we do, Dawa? Awesome. Phones? Excellent. Then I'll share it.